I know what you're thinking, an ad before the very first episode, but today wouldn't be possible without our sponsor, Sked Social. It's where I work and it's the legends behind this podcast. Did I just call myself a legend? I think I did. I don't know how I feel about that after I just said it, but whatever. If you manage socials or run content for clients, you already know the pain of tabs everywhere, random reminders, screenshots in notes, approvals, chaos, all that good stuff. Sked is actually the tool that fixes all that. So you can plan, schedule, tag, pull reports, analytics all in one spot without wanting to throw your laptop out the window. And for Black Friday, I can't believe I'm already saying this because what is it? The year's about to end already and, we're already a month out. But we're doing this anyway because, that's what we're about. You can get 50% off annual plans with the code SKEDBF50. That's SKEDBF50. Plus, there's a free 14-day trial. So if you've been meaning to clean up your workflow, now's the time. Go to skedsocial.com, start your free trial, use the code SKEDBF50 and thank me later. All right, now let's get into the good stuff. Welcome to Scene, the new podcast from Sked Social. This is for all the people who treat social seriously, who are behind the feed, doing all the good stuff. We thought, let's just shine a spotlight on these people. Let's tell these stories and let's make some good stuff happen because at the moment, I think the internet's gone a bit stale. I think we can all agree. Everyone's reading from the same sort of playbook, AI, ChatGPT, everyone's doing the same sort of trend chasing type of behavior. And it's just like, yes, that's cool. And some people, they can do that. Good on them. But I just think for us, we're just more about the rule breakers and shining a spotlight on them. So pretty pumped because we're kicking it off with Renee Shaw from TLDV, who's an absolute weapon, heads up the branded socials there. They got an awesome team, global team. If you haven't sussed out their work yet, go do it. All the links will be in the show notes. But if you've seen her on LinkedIn, you already know she's funny, smart, and not afraid to post what most people would second guess. So in this chat, we talk about why her strategy is basically coffees and chaos and some ciggies. Why personal matters more over company pages for reach, especially on LinkedIn. But even like an insight into the mindset and framework and strategy and approach. I just mentioned all those buzzwords there, but honestly, it's a real good insight into how they operate and how they do things. So this one's really about using your real voice online and getting away with it. So I'll shut up now and just let you listen because it's a good episode. Renee Shaw, big fan of your work. Been seeing you pop up on LinkedIn over the last couple of years, and I'm like, I have to get to know this person because you're doing things differently. Tell me your approach to LinkedIn and how you sort of approach content, because I feel like what we get on the other end is just amazing. It's something new and funny and fresh every day, and it's like an insight into your mind. So yeah, just would love that sort of your approach to content and how you see things.
I think I started posting on LinkedIn a couple of years ago as a response to, I had a job where I was managing their social and I commented on something as the company account and immediately got a message that was like, did you mean to do this? It's like a meme. And I was like, yeah, I meant to do it. And it wasn't appreciated. So I started doing it for myself. And then there's no goal. It's more being fed up with a lot of the corporate performative, it's like a theater. And I think I just kind of just see what I can get away with every day. And it's become that's the reason why I'm working where I'm working. Because my boss saw a post that I did and then we started chatting. And then 3 years later, I made a post saying that I was hiring a manager, hiring a boss. And he was like, yeah, we should work together. But there was no real job description. It was essentially can you just do what you do, but for us? So my approach to LinkedIn is very unserious. I think there's no strategy. It's have 3 coffees and then schedule a bunch of things far into the future. And then when they eventually get posted, I'm like, oh, I forgot I said that. And then just kind of deal with the consequences of that.
When you see in the feed, when you're looking at the news feed, what do you see when they're doing it well versus they're just adding to the noise? Are there things that you see in pieces of content where you're like, oh, that feels like them? Is it just that thoughtless nature? I feel like you can overcomplicate simple things.
Yeah, I think it's really I think I'm naturally quite jaded when it comes to LinkedIn, and I've gotten so far removed from what an actual job looks like. So I think that there's people that, distill their learnings in a way that isn't going to make them end up on LinkedIn lunatics. Like, here's what a funeral taught me about B2B. Like, it's not like that, like genuine, when people are like learning in public, as opposed to like just like building in public, when people are like really honest about it. I think there's quite a few people in Australia that are doing that. I think America is naturally quite like the American posters are very they're like really used to bragging and like being, and I think like it's like an Australian culture thing, like the tall poppy thing. So we're naturally kind of not wanting to talk about accomplishments. But I feel like things that I don't like in the feed are just a lot of like weirdly like a lot of trends. Like if I see like companies posting on trends, because generally it's like that little tiny bit too late. So it just is like, oh, that's pretty cringe. But like I said, I'm very jaded, and I feel like to care about that too much is probably not a cool thing. But also there is a point where like I forget, because I am so like online all the time, that something might be a trend for much longer than I consider it to be, because I've already seen it 50 times because I don't sleep. But yeah, I think yeah, I understand like also LinkedIn has this thing where like you kind of have to keep feeding the algorithm. So like sometimes you just have to post sloth. But I feel like you can go about it in a different way.
Well, I love that. And in terms of like a sales approach, because obviously LinkedIn, we see that as a tool for, selling whatever product you're selling. So for me, I always thought it was post whatever in terms of that makes me feel real, and that's just what I am kind of thing. And then people will click on my profile and see what I do and kind of learn that way rather than go the hard sell sometimes. But I'm learning maybe how to add things in where it's like you can definitely talk about what you're doing and things, but in a less salesy way. Like, what's your sort of mindset in terms of, you work for TLDV, at the end of the day, they need users and customers. And when you approach content that way, is it just like thinking about it personally, or is it with like the company in mind, or how do you sort of break that up?
Yeah, I think my boss and I have a really interesting approach, because he knows that I'm kind of going to do like, I would be posting on LinkedIn even if I didn't have a job, just because I find it so funny. And it's sort of, we've changed my content from more like, initially it was like, okay, you're going to be managing the company page. Now we don't really do company page posts. Like we're not seeing as much reach. So my like I go on little like they're not rants, but just like whatever post I'm doing, I try to have like a good mix of like maybe 40% will like be TLDB is kind of shoehorned in at the last minute, and then it becomes kind of like a just satire and like a bit. But a lot of people don't recognize the satire, so I'll end up on LinkedIn lunatics, and then the whole like, all publicity is good publicity. Like I don't necessarily agree with that, but I think that that does contribute to the eyeballs, which will then like, we get so many messages, like me and the other two creators will get so many messages being like, oh, we signed up because of it's always humor. It's always something funny. I think people forget that people enjoy laughing and they don't want to be sold to all the time. But if I'm having to sell, like one time I made a video where it was like me, I made the lighting like I was a hostage, and I tied my hands up and I was like, please buy it. And that was as a response to my boss being like, please try and include the product more. And I was like, I'll do that, but I'm not going to do it how you want me to. And then he, like, to his credit, he was like, you should post that. And I was like, oh man, like he's always like calling my bluff. And so I think that's how we end up with a lot of our content, is just our boss being a psycho in a good way.
Does it feel different, like with a crew around you? Like, how does it all happen when you're working with the team? Like, are you working on stuff together, or are you like putting topics and sketches and things together? And like, yeah, how does that process happen?
Yeah, I've never had a job like this. I've never made videos before. And the intention wasn't for me to make videos, but it was, I had an idea that I would prank my boss with a billboard. And then from there, he was like, yeah, you should make videos, because my editing skills are really poor. Like they're getting better, but like the whole bit was that I'm kind of like, I have this like younger sister energy despite being older than the guys and being like, include me, kind of love me. And it's kind of this like, we each have our own like personas. I think like Ian's really great at educational content and like walking people through the current things of the day, like whether it's like AI agents or APIs or whatever. Tom is like, he's a cinematographer for real. Like he's a director. He's like really great with camera work and like shots and stuff like that. And he's more sales focused, more like replicating scenes from movies. And originally we had like a really clear what we wanted me to be doing. And then I kept going off. So the typical, like, to answer your question, the typical process is like, we have a creator call on a Tuesday, which I'm asleep, so I have it async, and they'll all meet and talk about like what kind of videos we're thinking of working on, have a script, and then put it in Slack and then get feedback. And then I have individual calls with Tom and Ian each week, and we go over like just ideas. It's mostly like kind of as close as we can get to like a writer's room, like, because we all just want to be like SNL, but for tech. And I think that's the vibe. It's not like, in honesty, it's probably me like frantically voice noting Ian multiple times a day. And yeah, we're like pretty close as a team, I would think. And our CEO has a lot of input, like more input than I've ever seen at a company, like for marketing. And he's got a really keen sense. He's chronically online as well, which is helpful.
What's success then? Like if you put a video out and you're like, that's banging because it did what? Is it sales? Is it engagement? Is it the types of people who are engaged? Like, what do you go for in terms of metrics?
I think a lot of it is like the types of people that are engaging. So if we have like our sales audience, that's really valuable, because we are kind of getting into like more horizontal use cases. It's hard to know. And there are a lot of silent watchers. Like I get a lot of DMs by people that are like, oh, I love your stuff. I'm like, why didn't you like it then? Like, I'm going to go to your house. But I think there's that, but also we do like, I'm sure that we have like attribution, like, where did you find out about us? And I know that we do. It could be more what's the word? Like
Streamlined?
Elegant, yeah.
Yeah.
But I also have what's it called? It's like link in bio, where it's like, it's on my personal accounts everywhere, and it shows me that like it's like maybe 400 or 500 people go to TLDV each month based on like everywhere else I am, which is a nice little thing. But we're not super analytics heavy. We have like a spreadsheet, which is our performance across like each month, and like we pull it manually from LinkedIn. But in terms of like TikTok and Instagram, it's still like screenshot and then update at the end of the month. But it is one of those places that's very like gut. So for example, like the guys made the decision to stop doing reposts because they weren't driving followers. They're actually like hindering. So prioritizing like new content was like a decision made based on analytics. But for other decisions, I think it is more of like it's not like A/B testing. It's like A to Z testing. It's like just throwing shit at the wall. Yeah.
No, I love that. And LinkedIn's a tough one because you really need employee buy-in if you're really going to grow a brand presence there. And I think from how I look at it in terms of Sked, it's like, do cool things with cool people, post it off my personal page where it's got the most reach. And then when you do the repost on and you see the company page, that you can see all these different brands and different things that we're doing. But it's more just like a static website or landing page if someone's sort of looking at it, because it's just so hard to get traction and build that sort of stuff. But why did you choose the short form sketches? I'm sure there's a million different things you could do, a newsletter, like you could do a bunch of different things. Like what made you just go sort of videos is where we're sort of honing in?
Yeah. From my understanding of Rafa, who's one of the co-founders and CEO, he saw a lot of, I think it was like during COVID, he was seeing a lot of TikToks. He was like on TikTok a lot. And he just had a hypothesis that it would work, like that corporate sketches would work. And then basically hounded Tom he's the British one, hounded Tom, was like, will you work with us? And Tom was like, no, like twice. He rejected him, and then brought him on, and then brought on Ian, I think a year later, and Ian was the same. He was like, no. And I think I remember when I was first talking to my boss, I was like, oh, what made you do that? And it seems really odd to have like just a team just for creating videos, but it's worked out really well. And I think it's just being like, maybe not first to market in that kind of thing, but definitely like there's not heaps and heaps of teams doing it. And generally if they are, it's very like high production, like ClickUp, where they're all in the same environment, but like it's super easy. Well, I feel like it's super easy to do. And like if I had a company, I would be like hiring a bunch of like just freelancers, like heaps of them, and then just telling them to make video. Yeah, I really like that mentality. But I think it does require a level of like trust and not having a huge ego and not being like, oh, you have to do it exactly like this, because otherwise you're going to end up with like a really long kind of feedback period.
When you're talking about like building that, how much of that is like in your personal sort of stuff where you create that voice and then it becomes that brand? Or is there guidelines put in place where it's like, I have to mold that in? You're just shaking your head going, no. Like, that's what I love hearing. It's like, it's just whatever comes out and that's it. And like, that's how I've found the best sort of things happen is from that sort of experience.
We've got like the way that my videos have changed, I think, is a lot from team feedback of being like, you're really good at playing like a maternal condescending kind of character. And so I've got like a few videos that like the videos that do the best are when I'm just speaking from personal experience about founders in particular, because I have a lot of personal experience that I'm not too proud of with that. And I think that like if you see something working and then you just keep doing it. And like, for example, like Ian's got, he seems like he's the sweetest person in the world, like love him. And he's got this like energy that's like, I feel like one day he's going to break and he just rant at you. And that's the kind of like energy that he brings to his videos sometimes, like with the frustration of different roles like in an org. Yeah, I think we don't have a lot of kind of rules, but I think like for April Fools, I posted a video of me pretending to snort cocaine, and like that was fine. We do have and like I was gonna say no religion, but there was a religion video. There's very it's basically, I think the biggest rule is like you only punch up, you don't punch down, and that's kind of what we kind of aim to do.
What about like the risk of using like your real voice? Are there any like downsides to that when it's like your actual personal thoughts rather than just sort of spewing out stuff that you're just happy to repost or get around? Are there any risks to that?
I think about this a lot. I think about this in two different ways. Like I think the first is we are really heavy on localization. So we're in different markets. We're really big in Japan, which is like random. And the culture there, and especially humor and the approach to humor, is so different to more Western countries. Also in Brazil, and we've had to be really careful. And there's been so much work by like not the creative team, like the extended team, which is like on finding out where the line is and like what's respectful and what's not respectful. And I think like when you're trying to, it's the same conversation all the time about like, trying to speak to enterprise. Like, is enterprise going to want to engage with a company that's into memes? And it's like, well, yeah, they actually do. I think it's more of like knowing your buyer and knowing if your buyer is going to be the type of person. I think there are some people that really want to be placated to and really want to be, and that might be a cultural thing as well. Like, for example, Americans will be like, no, you call me doctor, whatever. They're not a doctor. But there's that are also like on a personal level. I do have this thing a lot, and I speak to like other people who post videos online where I'm like, I've dug myself a hole and I'm not employable anymore, which I know is not true because I have people reaching out like either trying to steal me or being like, hey, will you work with me? And I'm like, no. Like, there is like some work that I consider, but also it is a thing sometimes where I sit and I'm like this is kind of a tangent, but I often think about the other school parents. Like one of the school parents found my LinkedIn and like she mentioned it and I was just like, I need to delete the whole account. Like that's the most embarrassing thing I've ever. The idea of people in my real life knowing about what I do online, even though I am like, I'm doing it, I'm posting it so people see it, but that just disgusts me. But there, yeah, I think there is that consideration, but like how I would put that to other people is basically, it's like a worth thing. Like what, is it a risk that you're willing to take? And yeah, I feel like it's deeper than like just a career because it's more speaking to what you value as a person and like how, if you're comfortable seeing yourself as like who you are rather than what you think people should see you as. Anyway.
Oh no, I love that. And then when you are your actual self and you do put yourself out there like that, you attract the right types of people who you probably never knew. And then different opportunities pop up. And that's where I've sort of had the blind faith of like, if I just be myself, yes, it's going to piss a few people off. And it's like, whatever, there's no one going to be I know I'm a people pleasing type of person, you know what I mean? And just to be like, whatever, and just sort of throw it out there. I feel like that's kind of where most success kind of lies, is when you sort of put yourself out there. But I feel like a lot of people get stuck in that. Like some of the funniest people I know don't post anything. And it's like, oh man, like if you could just do this, like you'd be the most employable person on the planet. Like if you just done that, is there any advice for people like that who may be working for companies and stuff to just sort of bring out their own voice or things that you might have done early to really sort of find your way?
Yeah, I feel like I've changed a lot being on the internet more. I had gone through a period where like I had my own failed attempt at a startup and I was very into like writing like the whole like build in public and being really accountable. And that was very helpful. And there's some things like I think distribution is so important because you never know like what's gonna live on one platform will die on another platform in 3 months, but then it'll live on. Like I get emails from like one like Medium, like remember Medium?
Yeah.
Or a Medium post that I wrote about it's like a accelerator thing like Antler. And I still get people emailing me every year. And I'm like, God, I forgot that I wrote that. Like the internet is forever, like your whole digital footprint. But I think that it's tricky when people are working. I have a lot of like friends, like real life friends that work in government and they work at jobs where they can't work from home. And it's very like, they'll only go on LinkedIn to be like, happy to announce. And it's like, oh, it's so different from my experience. And so I try to empathize rather than like get judgmental, because my tendency initially was to be judgmental and to be like, oh, come on. But like, I don't know their experience. But I think the same for people that are quite judgmental of people that are posting on LinkedIn. And it's like, it doesn't have to be that way. Like there's a whole movement that I'm not in, but I see it. And it's like weird LinkedIn. And it's like people posting random stuff. And I think that although I'm not like super in favor of it, I think it is important for people to feel that they have a personality outside of work and it doesn't have to be tied to their job.
Yeah, because I think back in the day, LinkedIn was sort of used as that CV. Now it's kind of like, it feels like MySpace. And for the people who sort of grew up on that, it's like, in my head, I'm like, oh, that's an advantage because I like doing this sort of stuff and like, I enjoy doing that. So how much is it like, yes, learning new skills, but you actually enjoy what you do? Like when you write, you're like, that's funny, or that's my thing. You know what I mean?
That's a question.
I don't know. That was kind of just a weird statement, but I think like the passion for like when you actually like it, it's very different because it's hard.
I think what happened was I'm not posting as a persona. That's literally what my brain feels like. Do you know Andy Kaufman? Made a biography about him called Man on the Moon with Jim Carrey, and it's one of my favorite movies. And Andy Kaufman was like a famous satirist, and he was horrible on stage. His stage presence, like my favorite joke is like him just like at the microphone, and then he goes and he takes a breath, steps away, doesn't say anything. He's like edging the audience for like a good 10, 15 minutes. And he was just like uncomfortable and kind of cringe. And like that, I think is so funny. And so the idea that like I post something and it flops, like there's a scene, I'm full of references. There's a scene from Malcolm in the Middle where they're all in the car and it's drowning, like it's like going on. And I'm like, that's how I feel about posts that might not do well. I'm like, that's embarrassing that you didn't like that. Like, I think I have a level of delusion that I didn't used to have. I used to be like, oh no, like what if they don't like me? Like I don't care. Like I think it's funny. And I think it's funny that you don't think it's funny. How sad for you. Like I think you have to be like I think there are people that like they say like, oh, you don't want to have that internal bully, and that like I think I need an internal bully because I think I'm the funniest person ever. And like it's a joke, but it's also not a joke because I'm like, yeah.
I love that. It's like, that's the hill I'm dying on because I know that's funny. And like, I would laugh if someone else said that. And it's kind of like how, like I see music in that. It's like you see musicians make the best albums are the ones that they wanted to hear kind of thing. Not like, you know, so it's kind of like your vision. But before we let you go, I'd love to hear your take on like AI and content. Obviously, there's a lot to unpack there, but I mean, like in terms of, do you use it? How would you use it? And, yeah, what do you see in terms of, because obviously you have an AI product in terms of the meeting assistant notes and stuff and incorporating that into your content and stuff. But yeah, I'd love to hear your take on AI.
Yeah, so I got big into AI when, you know, ChatGPT was first released, and I had a few, I used to be really into like operations stuff, and I created like a bunch of like programmatic SEO pages for things that I was doing, and it used to be like a service that I would offer, and I was real nerdy with it. And I'm the kind of person that I will optimize something and it will take me 3 hours to save me 5 minutes. And I'm like, yeah, that was worth it because I just like trying things. And I think like people just like trying things. But in terms of how we use AI currently, it's a lot of, there's a really great, I don't remember his name, but he was a Simpsons writer and he wrote like 59 different episodes. And his approach to writing was essentially you write, like say there's a joke in The Simpsons where Homer wants to do something, Marge doesn't want him to do it. So he'll just write the bare bones of the script and then he'll insert all the jokes and all the bits later on. And I think that in terms of our videos, it used to start with the idea of a joke or something funny. But now it's the idea of a situation and then you add the jokes after. And I think AI is really great, like using ChatGPT. So I would just voice note. I'll be like not having a cigarette and voice noting and being like, hey, I have an idea for, you know, a founder who's actually a dog and I'm adopting him out or something. And then it's really great at like getting those bullet points and then I'll put them to the team and I'll be like, hey, what do you think about this idea as a concept? And then we go through and think of what could make it funny. I know that I think like other teams in TLDV are using AI for other things. And like, I know that we all mess around with it, but I think that's the biggest thing for us is just making it neat and then making it good afterwards. But also my personal thoughts on AI, I'm addicted to those Sora videos of like, there's ones of the Queen like rapping or like she's like in the NBA finals. I think my actual sense of humor is so crude and so like brain rot that like, it's not funny. It's terrible. And I really like AI for that. I don't have any really like hard held beliefs about, you know, the internet scraping and all that kind of thing, because my own personal thoughts on like IP and copyright are a little bit, I think, different in that I don't know, I can understand it, but also I can't understand like being worried about people taking your stuff. Like if someone steals a meme from me, I'm like that's good because it means more people see it and think it's funny. Like, I don't know.
It's a different way to look at it. I think like you use it exactly how I use it in terms of voice notes and just getting like a thing down and then it's like structure it up. But I just don't like the writing types of things, you know, when you see it and it's just like, it feels like a formula. And I still see it and I see some things get like massive engagement. I'm like, that's all right. Like it works for them. Cool, whatever. But it's just, I think it's really good if you're a good prompter and you know how to think about, it's like critical thinking. Like you're a big, you know, when we had you on the Q&A, you said that was the most like undervalued or underutilized skill. And I think that is it. It's like prompting your thoughts around, you still have to write the stuff, or how do you create the structure around the looseness of kind of, or the cultural tension of what's going on type of thing. And I think like, it's so cool how you do it with the team in terms of take it to them. It does actually kind of feel like a TV show and a little bit different. And it's so cool that you got like a boss or bosses who just like allow that and lean into it and just, because I think that is different, you know, and nothing but respect for what you do. And it's been awesome picking your brain and hearing about, you know, your journey into content and stuff and what you think. But It's been the first episode. It's been a good one. And honestly, yeah, appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.